Welcome to the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris, here with my co-host, A to Z Sports writer Zach Ragan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, we thank you for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast, and if you want to listen to it on the reg, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple, Spotify, and subscribe. When you subscribe, you won't miss an episode when we drop them on Mondays. Then YouTube.com, type into the search bar A to Z Sports and subscribe to the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube page. And then you can see the podcast there if you're not doing that already. That's what the cool kids do. Frankly, let's be honest. Listening is so last year. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Nashville, and A to Z Sports.com for all the stuff that Zach and I write and the social medias and all of that stuff. With that out of the way, you know what this week is, Zach? College football is back, baby. Big time games with big time players. Honolulu, Hawaii. Saturday night. The great, the lauded Vanderbilt Commodores will be playing. And we'll all be rooting for Hawaii. Let's go, Rainbow Warriors. Football is back this week, Zach. Are you excited? The long national wait for this time is finally coming to a close. How you doing?
I feel like this Vanderbilt game is kind of like an NFL preseason game. We're all going to be excited that football is happening, college football is happening, a game that matters. And then about the second quarter, maybe not even that long, everybody's going to be like, okay, this is Vanderbilt, and I'm already tired of this game. When does the real game? When do the real games start?
When it gets to that third quarter and the score's 7-3, we're just like, why did I watch this? Why did I devote 2.5 hours of my life to this? I may stay excited since it is sort of the first game. There is a number of games. A lot of them are kind of snoozers this first week, but that one is the first SEC game, if that's really what you want to consider it. I was down there. I mentioned it on the podcast last week. Had my birthday was over the weekend. Went to Nashville with the wife and visited the Parthenon. It was actually the first. I am a Nashville native, born in Nashville, lived there. Until we moved when I was young, and I lived in Knoxville since then. But never in my life have I been to the Parthenon over on West End, the Parthenon replica that they have over there. Went to that, and it's right next to Vandy's football stadium. And man, it is looking small as ever. What a pathetic stadium they have over there. It's really sad. I can't believe they actually are in the SEC. We need to kick them out. But we'll just start the podcast that way. Let's go, Rainbow Warriors. But a ton has happened for Tennessee football this week, and we're going to have to talk about all of it. Might end up being a long episode. We'll see. And unfortunately, so much optimism this offseason. It seemed a little too good to be true. We can't forget this is Tennessee. Things happen. When does the other shoe drop? I wouldn't say that anything that happened this week is any kind of a tragedy. Both are just not ideal. That's how I would put it. The first of those is that brand new running back, Lyn-J Dixon, transfer from Clemson, is no longer with the team. He lasted, I think I saw somebody say he was with the team a whole extremely long storied tenure of 18 days in Knoxville. Didn't make it too far, and we'll talk about that. But then a ton of people have been talking about, especially since last night, this being Monday, a ton of people have been talking about Bru McCoy's eligibility and the games that it seems like Southern California is playing with his eligibility. The wide receiver transfer that Tennessee really needs this season and would be a huge add, I think. USC is kind of dragging their feet in terms of, that's even being kind in terms of dragging their feet. We'll talk about that too. But let's start with this. This is something that happened in between last week's podcast and now. It was 2 hours after the podcast last week. We talked about the commitment of Ricky Gibson, wide receiver, defensive back commit to Tennessee. And I mean, what was it? An hour later, if that, after we recorded the show, Tennessee got a commitment from a player who I think most people didn't think was coming to Tennessee, Jordan Matthews. And out of Baton Rouge, I love this kid because of this commitment. We're a week late on this, obviously, so we won't dwell on it too long. 4-star player across the board. Pretty like highly sought after, I guess would be the right word. The predictions were not in Tennessee's favor, and he brought out a box and opened it at his commitment, and it had like a light inside that like showed on him, and they opened it and they were like, "Oh, the light in the box." And then which was funny in itself, and then he pulled out a Tennessee hat. I'm going to Tennessee. His dad, I believe he said his dad is an LSU alum. He did an interview where he said something like Tiger Stadium is cute, but I'm ready to go to Tennessee, something like that. And I was like, this is good. I like this kid. Nice pickup. So that was exciting because it was really a surprise. Did you see this, Zach?
Yeah, I I like the way he committed. It kind of felt like an ode to Pulp Fiction with the briefcase that they're carrying around in the movie, and you never really know what's inside of it. Kind of gave me that vibe. But yeah, going to Baton Rouge, getting a 4-star kid that everybody thought was going to go play for the Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian. He kind of surprisingly picks Tennessee. It's at a position of need, cornerback, tall kid, 6'1". That's huge. You go get a 4-star guy from Baton Rouge. I mean, that's not something that Tennessee does at all, ever. Not many schools do that, honestly. I mean, it's usually if they don't go to LSU, maybe it's Florida, maybe it's like A&M or Texas, one of those, or Alabama. Like that's usually pretty much it. If a Baton Rouge kid doesn't go to LSU, so that's huge. Maybe Tennessee can have a little pipeline there. I think they got some other players from Louisiana as well. So it just shows that Josh Heupel can recruit anywhere, and they're going and looking for guys outside of the typical areas. They're still hitting the state pretty hard, but they're taking their shot at some players like that you wouldn't normally expect Tennessee to land.
Are you telling me, Zach, that some players are not interested in doing TikTok videos with Brian Kelly at LSU? Brian Kelly and his family down there at LSU.
I don't know how hard LSU was on this kid. I mean, usually a 4-star from Baton Rouge, a number 8 player in the state of Louisiana. That's a guy. I mean, if Tennessee lost the number 8 player in the state of Tennessee to LSU and it was a 4-star that was from Knoxville, I mean, fans would be losing their minds right now. I don't care how good Tennessee is. That would not fly. So, again, I don't know the situation down there at LSU or if they were on this kid or what Brian Kelly's looking for necessarily, but I would be kind of ticked if I was an LSU fan, I think.
Number 15 cornerback in the class of 2023, rated as a 94 in the 247 Sports Composite. Take that with a grain of salt. And I believe they're actually about to reshuffle their recruiting rankings today. I think it's going to happen after we record, but we'll see if anybody in Tennessee's class goes up the rankings, goes down. I think the ones that people will really be talking about will be like those quarterbacks at the top. We'll see if Nico makes any movement. But yeah, I'm looking at 247 as recently as June 17th. There were predictions for Matthews to go to Texas. So, and there were multiple predictions for him to go to Texas on 247 Sports by their quote unquote insiders that they got over there. So the information that they heard was not too good, it seems like, but that's awesome. Love that pickup. We just happened to record right before we even had a conversation because Ricky Gibson committed to Tennessee last week. We were talking about that, and there were a lot of people after that commitment where they were like, "Oh, we're back to 3-star U at Tennessee." And we were talking, just like, what do you kind of expect from Josh Heupel? That he's like, you can kind of get these once in a blue moon 5 stars, but realistically, that's not the situation that Tennessee is in right now. They're not really. I'm not expecting Heupel to pick up and just recruit a ton of 5 stars. And then he turns right around literally an hour later after we have that conversation and gets a unexpected 4-star that no one thought was going to come to Tennessee. So, shows what we know, I guess. but had to cover that quickly. This episode of the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast is brought to you by Superbook Sports. Football is back, and nobody is more excited than our friends at Superbook Sports. Superbook is bringing Vegas-style wagering to the palm of your hands, and now they will match 100% of your first bet up to $1,000, no matter if the bet wins or loses. Crazy offer. You don't have to be in Nashville or Knoxville to enjoy football this fall. Just visit superbook.com or download the Superbook Tennessee app right now onto your phone and start getting in on all the action. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. And if you have a gambling problem, make sure you call 1-800-889-9789, superbook.com, and find the app on the App Store. But Zach, in the Superbook app, let's talk briefly. Tennessee over under 8 wins is what they have here, minus 110 on both sides. I don't know how I'm feeling about this, but if you were a betting man, over under 8 wins, where are you going?
Man, I feel like they set that line perfectly right there,
Yeah,
because
it's tough.
that is right on it, man. You know, I don't think they'll win less than 8. So I think the most likely outcome is probably that they win right at 8 then. But I would if I had to take either side, I'd bet the over on that. I think especially this close to football season is when I start feeling pretty optimistic about Tennessee right before the season starts. So, set that over under at 11. I might still go over then. I don't know.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Just every year at this time when it's so close to the season beginning, I'm just like, all right, well, we're going 15-0. It's a national championship team. Bet the over. Just put me down for that bet, because it's just too much optimism. I can't help myself. I gotta go over 8 for me. And whatever the good folks think at home, that bet is there on Superbook Sports. Again, download the app, get in on the action, help out the boys here at A to Z Sports. They help them out because they help us out. It's huge, their sponsorship with us. Again, superbook.com, or go to the App Store on your phone, on Google Play, Apple App Store, wherever fine apps are sold. Superbook Sports. Go there now and download it. And now, let's get back to the show. And then let's get to the news from the last few days. Lyn-J Dixon, this is just... If you listen to the analysis of this kid, it kind of tracks, it seems like, with sort of his history. He's hopped around all over the place. He technically, in his transfer, committed to West Virginia first back in November. That didn't work out, however, maybe similarly to this. And then obviously didn't really get a lot of play at Clemson either, even though the play that he did have was pretty good. And I think he probably could have been a useful piece of Tennessee, even though he would have been down the roster a little bit, probably the third or fourth guy in the lineup in Tennessee's running back room. But did you see the details here, Zach? As I said, I was kind of out of town. I missed this actually happening and had to look back on it. But what may or may not have happened here? Did he fall on a helmet? What happened with Lyn-J, man?
Yeah, I don't think there's really much to say about it on Tennessee's side of things. From what I understand, he was kind of interested in Tennessee last fall. He visited Tennessee for a game, and Tennessee kind of decided to go another direction, that they didn't really need him at the time. And perhaps there was something to that. Maybe there was I don't know, character concern, or just the path he had kind of taken to get to where he was. I'm not sure what gave Tennessee pause, because he's obviously a talented player. We saw that with some of his numbers at Clemson, averaging 6-7 yards a carry at times. So when Lenith Whitehead got injured this summer, out for the year, Tennessee needs some depth. Lyn-J Dixon's still kind of looking around. Doesn't really work out at West Virginia. They give him a shot. Again, not really positive what happened during training camp or fall camp. He practiced a few times with Tennessee. I think he might have sustained a bit of an injury and, left the program. Like, I don't know if he saw that he wasn't going to get the playing time that he wanted at Tennessee necessarily, because you got Jabari Small's going to be the guy. Tennessee's high on Jalen Wright, really like Dylan Sampson as a true freshman. You've also got Justin Williams-Thomas, who's seemingly improving in pass protection and could play a role this season, maybe in short yardage situations. Dixon might have been the number 5 guy on the depth chart. I don't know. Or maybe he was going to surprise everybody and play really well. We'll never know now. I think the feeling is that he wasn't going to be a huge factor. Now Tennessee's depth, again, beyond those 4 guys, they don't have a ton of depth. So that's concerning if someone gets hurt. But if everyone stays healthy, Tennessee should be fine. Jabari Small is going to get the bulk of the carries. They're going to work these other guys in too. But they stay healthy. It's not a big deal. You suffer 4 injuries to your running back, and suddenly, I don't know, you got a walk-on or somebody that you're not counting on to carry the ball, and that's definitely not ideal, especially the way Josh Heupel's offense runs. You really need somebody in there that fully understands the offense, where they're supposed to be at all times, what Hendon Hooker's trying to do, where you need to pass protect, because the offense is such a rapid fire offense. The tempo, you can't be out there wondering what you're supposed to be doing, or it doesn't work at all. You're going to start having penalties on offense because people aren't lined up right. So it's really important that you have established guys in that room. So again, hopefully they stay healthy. Otherwise, it could be a problem.
You are one injury away from relying heavily on a sophomore who had some quad issues in fall camp in Jalen Wright, and a couple of, just fresh to the school freshmen. And that's a little daunting. But if you do stay healthy and that room remains good, that lineup is essentially just what it was before. I don't think before Lynette Whitehead went out, I don't think the plans were not to have him play a ton anyway. It seems like even with Lyn-J Dixon in the lineup, the plans were not to have him play a ton. And I just the details here are so scant. Just looking at what VolQuest wrote, and in my own personal opinion, VolQuest probably has the best information. Not to play favorite. I mean, we're kind of outside that whole sphere, even though I guess we technically are Tennessee media in a sense, but they probably have the best information just because Hubs. Technically, I mean, he works for the Vol Network. He's really in the building a lot. They have a great connection, just been around for forever and a day over there. And they all they put in their article was, after Dixon left West Virginia, Tennessee suffered a setback with the loss of Lynette Whitehead and chose to give Dixon another look, like you said. He visited the last weekend of July before announcing his intentions. He practiced a handful of times before injuring an ankle. Tennessee will have 4 scholarship running backs remaining. So they really didn't have a whole lot of details in terms of what exactly happened there. And I don't think it matters, frankly. You're kind of right back to where you started. And it's a little bit of a tenuous situation. You have to have these guys stay healthy. Heupel better be on that strength and conditioning coach, make sure he's doing a good job. And hopefully he everything stays good there, but it's not great. I kind of said that at the beginning. Are these things devastating, horrific for Tennessee? No, I don't think they are, but it's not ideal. You wish you had the added depth there and a guy who's been around college football as long as Dixon had been. But yeah, I mean, it might be a character issue. Genuinely, you don't know. And if it was a character issue, honestly, you might be better off without him. Because you, especially with sort of the culture that Heupel is building, you don't really want to have guys who are a distraction in the locker room. That can be bad all on its own. So, it is what it is. But before we move on to this Bru McCoy stuff, anything else with the Lyn-J Dixon news, Zach?
Yeah, I saw some comments about people. There were very few of these, but a few comments about, okay, is this like a red flag on Heupel? Either Lyn-J leaving or taking a chance on him to begin with if there were character concerns, which I don't know if there were or not to blast the kid, because I don't know. I just don't know. But obviously that assumption is going to be made anytime you have a situation like this. I don't think it's a red flag at all. I mean, I think red flags are things that you see repetitively happening. There is going to be player movement always, especially with the transfer portal. you're going to take a chance on kids and it doesn't work out. You're managing a roster of over 100 kids. You take 100 random people and you don't really know what kind of situation you're going to inherit. And you don't know, how everybody's not going to respond the same way to the culture. Everybody's not going to be a fit. And sometimes you don't know that until a player's on campus and you go through 4 or 5 practices with them and get to see them in day-to-day action and how they interact with everyone. So I think that would be a stretch to call anything like that a red flag on Heupel. It was different with Butch Jones when you had 4 and 5 players leaving the program every month, it seemed like at one point, or Jeremy Pruitt losing multiple assistants every offseason. It's when you start to see the same problems creeping in that it becomes a red flag, and we just haven't seen that with Josh Heupel yet.
I completely agree. I'm not reading too much into it. That type of stuff, these types of things happening did become a real red flag with Butch at the end, but it was really because of the details that would come out about them after the fact, where it was just nonsense just happening off the field. I just think in this case, we talked about it, like they didn't want him initially. The situation became they really needed some depth. They pick him up, and it just isn't the right fit. Take it at what it is. And kind of go from there. And I'm also, admittedly, with the way that things are going currently, I'm not digging for red flags. Back with Butch, people were digging for red flags. They were kind of like, all right, it's done with this guy. Let's start. We got to find some stuff to see what's really going on since it's not going so hot on the football field.
Yeah, I don't think red flags even start until you start seeing a lack of results on the field.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, what's
exactly.
going wrong here? As long as everything's progressing, like no program is perfect. I mean, we've seen Alabama lose players plenty. We've seen not great situations at other programs, and those programs are healthy programs that are among the elite programs in the nation. It's just not always going to be the case. I mean, Georgia took Eric Gilbert after he was at LSU, kind of a similar situation, and he's been I don't know when he's at practice and when he's not at practice. I'm not sure what the status with him right now is, but I know he didn't really play for them and was kind of back and forth. That's not an indictment of the coaching staff. I mean, that's just that one player's situation.
Exactly. These things happen. And you can even have an unhealthy program that wins. Remember back to Urban Meyer at Florida, had literal murderers in his locker room and a whole bunch of other crap going on there. And they were winning national championships. So, there's that. I would say don't read into it too much because you're just, I don't think that it's worthwhile at this point. What is even the point of doing something like that? But let's move on now to the topic that everybody has kind of been talking about over the last day. And this is just another real Tennessee situation. And it can't, nothing can ever be easy around here. We thought in this last year, things have really taken a turn. You win 2 SEC championships in major sports. Football is really looking up, and it's great. And even with that, it's got to be some nonsense that just doesn't happen to other schools. It still has to happen to Tennessee. Bru McCoy, wide receiver transfer from Southern California, is trying to get his eligibility to be able to play. Tennessee is doing their damnedest to get this kid on the football field for the 2022 season. He has to be cleared by the NCAA. But apparently this news has come out from reporting specifically I saw from Trey Wallace at, I guess he's now with Outkick, Clay Travis's website. And then also a post from Austin Price on VolQuest, where essentially USC could just like sign a piece of paper that is, what was the exact name? An NPO, a non-participation opportunity form. And this kid would be good to go. But USC has refused to do it. So here's, without, Trey's reporting was great and kind of a little more extensive, but here's what Austin Price wrote. He started out by saying, good reporting by Trey Wallace. USC obviously felt some pressure because of all Twitter and emails and so on and so forth. With that said, their statement is bathed in half-truth, as they can still control his eligibility with a signature on a non-participation opportunity form. USC has indicated multiple times to both Tennessee and the family that they were going to do so, but now have refused to do it and have put this completely on the NCAA. Their statement was in support of Bru and to help with Tennessee's appeal, but they could have easily made this a one-stop shop by just signing the MPO. And so all of that came out, and Vol Twitter went nuts, as Vol Twitter does. And they should have, because this is absolute BS. This is ridiculous. Let this kid play college football. It's stupid. And so they're just lighting up USC, like sign the paper, just inundating USC. And the statement that Austin is referring to is this one from Southern California. They got so much pressure from Vol Twitter that they made an official statement from the USC, not just USC football Twitter account, the USC athletics Twitter account about a single transfer player. They came out and made a statement to defend themselves, and they said USC has, consistent with NCAA rules, promptly and accurately responded to all requests from the University of Tennessee related to the eligibility of Bru McCoy. At no point since Bru entered the transfer portal in January have we objected to him being made immediately eligible to play at Tennessee. And that's a cute little way to say that. The issue of Bru's eligibility ultimately rests with the NCAA, and we wish him the best. This is USC going, we're not doing it. And we're washing our hands of the situation. Here you go. Well, isn't that just convenient? Congrats, USC. You're getting what you wanted by, it could just be easy. You could be like decent people and just do it. But I think this really tracks with Lincoln Riley. Does it not? This guy's a scumbag. Can we just say this? Lincoln Riley's a scumbag because he leaves Oklahoma high and dry for a giant sum of money, which I don't necessarily blame him for that. But the thing that makes him a scumbag is he's recruiting players as he goes out the door, trying to get them to go to USC. When Tennessee had a bunch of players transfer out in between Pruitt and Heupel, he's technically against NCAA rules or just general, sort of accepted behavior in college football. He's recruiting players behind closed doors to come to Oklahoma because, three players went to Oklahoma.
Eric Gray, Wanya Morris, and Keyshawn Lawrence, I believe.
Yeah, and now he's playing games at USC. And maybe it doesn't come directly from him, but somebody over there is, and this is absurd. And as I said, it can't just be easy, can it? It just can't. But your thoughts on this, Zach?
Well, I mean, obviously it's completely absurd. If you can, and look, we got two guys. We got Trey Wallace, who's done some really great reporting and broke a lot of stories over the last several years, and you got Austin Price. He kind of alluded to VolQuest is really the go-to when it comes to Tennessee stories getting broken, and especially when it comes to just recruiting and transfers and stuff like that. So you got to trust what both of those guys are saying. They have a good track record of being correct, and I don't think either would go on the record like this if they weren't accurate in saying that USC could sign this form. All this would be forgotten about. Bru McCoy would be playing against Ball State, no question. My first thought is that USC probably doesn't care if Bru McCoy is lining up for Tennessee this fall. Tennessee should not be a factor in anything that happens with USC this year. I don't think either team's making the playoff, so they don't have to worry about that. And really, if you do get that far, I don't think you're that worried about one wide receiver winning the game. It goes way beyond that. I think that USC just doesn't want to set a precedent with this. I think that, okay, what happens if a player transfers from USC to a team that they might actually play that season, or obviously within the conference would be a little different, I'm sure. But okay, we might face this team in January 2 years from now or something. Like they might run into a situation where they don't want a player to go to a team that they might have to play against. And I think they're afraid of setting the precedent now of, okay, you sign that for him, then to go to Tennessee. Why won't you sign this so this guy can go to Georgia or Alabama or Clemson, somewhere like that, hey, USC might be worried about playing later in the season. That's, to me, I think that's where it lies, but it's kind of weird how they've completely ignored that is an avenue that could be taken. Like their statement that was released on Sunday night, which I think was pretty much the same statement they gave Trey Wallace, which was definitely in response to all the tweets they're getting from Tennessee fans. Every time I open Twitter up, there's a tweet to the USC athletic director or somebody. I think that's probably where that lies. I'm just shocked that they're not even acknowledging that as a possibility and giving some sort of explanation. I think people would understand. They wouldn't be happy about it, but give some sort of explanation on why you're doing this. Tennessee fans may not agree. They likely won't agree. I won't agree because I think you should let him go, but at least they would have an explanation and there wouldn't be all this speculation about it.
The thing that makes me the most incensed in this is this little sentence. At no point since Bru entered the transfer portal in January have we objected to him being made eligible to play at Tennessee. Okay, technically true. Sure. Yeah, that's nice. But yeah, you're not helping the kid out. And this makes me particularly angry. And this gets into a larger conversation that I don't necessarily want to have, but it goes along with this. I mean, the fact that kids can't just transfer and play is so stupid. Every other kid that is in college, you can hop around to any college you would like as long as they accept you and you can go there. You know, they have to let you in. You have to meet their requirements to go, but they don't go, you know, the school that you came from, if you go from Georgia to Tennessee as an engineering major, Georgia is not going, wait. We have to wait for this body over here to tell you can go to class and get taught engineering. They can't do that. You just go to the other school and then you go to engineering classes and you get your degree later. That's all. But when it comes to college football, suddenly we had the NCAA has to get involved. They have to sign off on it because who gives them that authority outside of us just agreeing that they are the leading body of college sports? And you know what? We need to stop agreeing to that. And thankfully, some news came out this week that there have been discussions between some of the leaders of the big conferences about doing that. That would be good, finally breaking away from the NCAA. So that ball is rolling in the right direction. But it's just so stupid. I don't necessarily blame USC of just going, we're done with this. See you later, bye. And we're not worrying about it anymore. If Tennessee did that, yeah, I'd be like, that's a little rude. But so what? Like if it was exactly reversed, a player going to USC from Tennessee, and Tennessee just kind of goes like, just it's the NCAA. The NCAA will do it. We're not gonna intervene in that, but they'll just handle it. You know, I would go like, too bad. So sad. That's just the way that it works in college football. But this whole setup with the NCAA, I mean, this is what makes me mad is because USC could go, screw the NCAA, just let this kid play football. And that would be the ideal situation because it just is so stupid. Arbitrarily, you can only transfer once. What? Why? Because they're not employees, are they? You know, they don't. That's, they didn't sign a non-compete. There's nothing like that. As I said, it's a large conversation about like how the NCAA needs to be abolished. But just the whole thing just makes me ill because just let this kid play football. You're messing with his future. Realistically speaking, if this kid has the skill to go to the NFL and you're telling him, no, you can't, the avenue that you have to show off to the scouts in the NFL is to play college football. Well, you can't play college football, says the NCAA. And the NCAA, we're here for the athletes. That's all we care about is that. It's definitely not the billions and billions and billions of dollars that these athletes make for us. No, it's nothing about that. We care. It's all about the athlete. No, it's not. It's not. It's not about the athletes at all, or else you just go, okay, he can play. Okay, done. Here you go. Because it's not about the athletes. It's about control. It's about making money off the backs of these players that don't get paid. At least with the name, image, likeness stuff, they get paid. But even the NCAA is even coming after that, pathetically. Now, telling schools to rat on each other. That's another thing that happened this week. The NCAA apparently is like going to schools, sending them emails being like, hey, if you know about any untoward things happening in NIL, make sure you tell us about them.
Shane Beamer is going to be the first one to tell on somebody. He has that
Dude,
look.
He's a tattletale for sure. Shane's a rat.
Him or Elijah Drinkwitz, both of those two are the ones.
God, this all just makes me so mad. I'm glad that Tennessee fans have been getting at USC.
I don't understand why USC has any bearing on what Bru McCoy does now. Once you leave a program, they should not have any sort of control over what your next move is. Like, that's the most absurd thing to me, and it's been that way. And the one good thing, there was multiple good things about Jeremy Pruitt, but the one thing that I really respected about him is that he never tried to block anybody. When he was Tennessee's head coach, Tennessee had several situations where they were waiting on the NCAA to clear players. Cade Mays, Aubrey Solomon, multiple times they had to wait on these waivers, and it was just the exact same situation with Bru McCoy. But Pruitt, when a player transferred from Tennessee, I remember this with Marquil Osborne, who transferred to UNC Charlotte. Still, this was before the transfer rules and stuff had changed a little bit. I think it's like 2018, 2019 maybe. He wrote a letter to the NCAA to help expedite that process, and he did become immediately eligible. And Pruitt's letter was part of the reason why. Like, just help the kids out. Like, if you're in coaching for the right reasons to make an impact on student athletes, and not just the paycheck and the ego stroking your ego that comes with it, you got to do right by the kids. And Lincoln Riley isn't, USC isn't. Tennessee typically has been on the right side of this. Tennessee fans should be proud about that because it's just the right thing to do. So I don't know why they still have control over McCoy, and I don't know why they're not helping him move his career along to play at Tennessee, a place that is not going to impact USC. If he was transferring to Oregon or something, I would understand the gamesmanship that would happen with that. I still wouldn't love it because I'm like you. You should be able to go wherever you want to go because an engineering student can do that. So a football player should be able to do that as well, whether it's in the conference or not. I don't care if it's Cedric Tillman wanting to transfer to LSU that, out of nowhere. Like, yeah, it would suck, but that he should be able to do that. Like, that's just the right thing to do.
College football, to the NCAA, college football is not a business. It's amateur until it becomes inconvenient for them to have it not be a business. Then all of a sudden it's a business. That's, oh, you're hurting my pocketbook. All right, well, it's a business now. We're not going to let you have eligibility. But there are really just two sides to this. USC should just sign this and make it easy. Also, USC shouldn't have to sign this because the NCAA should just get the heck out of the way, shut up and go away, and this shouldn't be a problem. Like, it shouldn't be anybody's problem. It shouldn't be Tennessee's problem. It shouldn't be Bru McCoy's problem. It shouldn't be USC's problem. And that's the dumbest part of the whole thing. This shouldn't even be an issue. The kid should just be able to play college football, not to get on too high of a grandstand here, and not to let USC off the hook. Just sign the piece of paper. Stop being coy about this. We all know the situation. And this is why I kind of go like, all right, Lincoln Riley's a scumbag, because we all know the situation. Everybody that's in power in college football hates the NCAA. The NCAA is nothing but a nuisance. They essentially provide nothing. Like in college basketball, they give the structure of the NCAA tournament and things like that, and they actually bring some amount of value as far as that's as nice as I could be about the NCAA there. It is actually the NCAA basketball tournament, where the college football playoff is completely independent of the NCAA. That's why high-level college football officials can have the conversation of, we're going to step away from the NCAA. Like, we're done here. We're going to make our own rules and just have it be our own deal now, because the NCAA does not provide anything to us except being an annoyance when it comes to getting these players paid or rules changes or anything like that needs to be done. They are just an impediment in every single way. At every step of the process, we have to go through the NCAA, even though everybody knows that they're just a useless organization that sits at the top of the hill thinking that they have some sort of, value that they bring. And that's the worst part about USC's, because they know Lincoln Riley knows. Lincoln Riley doesn't like the NCAA. He doesn't go like, oh, the NCAA is some great austere organization that we need to respect, and they'll handle this in the best way possible. Because again, if the situation was reversed, he would be incensed about it. He would be pissed off. And like I said, Tennessee fans would probably just be like, too bad, so sad. It's not really our problem. But at the end of the day, like Tennessee, if it was reversed, Tennessee should just sign the piece of paper, because we all know that the NCAA sucks. Cut out the NCAA. Take them out of the equation at every single opportunity possible. And that's where I kind of go, come on, USC. We all know the NCAA sucks. Like, help us help you. I could go on that for days, but that's really my take on the situation. It pisses me off to no end. This just, I feel bad if this kid misses time playing college football. I feel horrible for him, just getting screwed over. And we're here for the athletes. It's all about the athletes. No, it's not. It's not. Or else you'd let him play. So stupid. But is there anything else, Zach, with this that you think we might need to discuss?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. If he misses any time because of this, it would really be a tragedy. Not so much for Tennessee. I mean, I think they're going to beat Ball State regardless of if Bru McCoy's on the field or not. Pittsburgh, I don't know, but you only get so many college football home games at Neyland Stadium when you play there. Bru McCoy's already not going to have that many because he doesn't have as much eligibility as a true freshman coming in. But you only get so many chances to run out of that tunnel and to run through the tee and to experience that. And to miss it, especially at night. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of night games at Neyland over the years. So you got a Thursday night game, a national audience. It's going to be a big spectacle. And, Bru McCoy wants to be a part of that. Any student athlete, that's what you dream of. That is what you want to do. That's why you play the game. And to take just 1 week of that from a kid for no reason, like there's no logical reason that this should be the case. There's no reason that makes sense that he should not be eligible at all for reasons that we've already discussed here. It's just silly, and it really does come down to the USC doesn't want to set a precedent because they don't want to be asked to do this in the future. They just don't want to be involved. They just leave us out of it totally. That's kind of their take on this and their approach on this. And the NCAA, we're well aware of how they operate. They want all the power, and they don't want to give in. And if they do give in, like with the Cade Mays situation, they're going to wait until into the season or something, just so you know that they impacted it a little bit and they made you kind of sweat it out a bit. So it's just unfortunate for everybody involved. Mostly really unfortunate for Bru McCoy. Hopefully it gets ironed out this week. I like that Tennessee fans are putting some pressure on USC. We all know what USC can do. We all know that they can end this and make Bru McCoy eligible to play at Tennessee. It's all on them. Yeah, if you leave it up to the NCAA, who knows when it happens, but hopefully this week, maybe USC will succumb to the pressure and sign the form that needs to be signed. I picture it just sitting on the athletic director's desk right now, just kind of stuff on it. He's just kind of pushed it aside, but hopefully that gets done and we won't have to worry about this anymore.
From the NCAA, it always feels vindictive. And of course, they would never admit to that, but in any of these situations, I'm not saying just even specifically towards Tennessee, although it has happened multiple times in the last few years. You mentioned Cade Mays there. It happened with Uros Plavsic. Uros missed an entire half of a season because he couldn't get his eligibility cleared with the NCAA. I mean, why? I think on the NCAA's part, I can't imagine that it is a whole lot more than a stroke of a pen on their end. Maybe a stack of forms. I like the last couple
What are they
years,
worried about? Nobody even understands the waiver process or what the hell anybody's even asking for a waiver for or what's being waived. Nobody's going to ask questions if they're like, oh, Bru McCoy's eligible. College football fans around the country be like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
And I get the argument that like it should, it'll be the Wild West. Everybody will transfer everywhere all the time. First of all, I don't agree. Because if your football program is well run and the players are respected, they're not going to want to just leave your program willy-nilly. Like, yeah, maybe quarterbacks
Well,
who
look at Joe
only
Milton at Tennessee. He could have
yeah,
left. You think some team would not take his arm? I mean, it may
exactly.
not be another SEC team, but somebody would take that guy.
Yeah, like to some extent. Yeah, players are going to hop all over. They're already doing it with the one opportunity to transfer. But yeah, as long as your program is well run, kids aren't just going to hop out constantly. They're going to want to play. They're going to want, again, there's motivation to stay, to show their talent, to play in the SEC, to be able to play on, national TV in front of NFL scouts in the biggest stadiums, on the biggest stages in college football. Like there's plenty of motivation where they're not just going to be like, all right, my college career was at LSU and Georgia and Mississippi State. And, because I think in the same way, when you go to a job interview, I think everybody who's had a job knows that on your resume, it does not look good if you hop around to jobs every 6 months. Employers don't like to see that because they go like, well, he's just going to do that to me, and it's going to be the same thing in college football. I think to a certain extent, this is kind of what happened with Lyn-J Dixon.
Mm-hmm.
You saw some signs and you go like, I don't know about this guy. And ultimately they pick him up sort of out of necessity and it just doesn't work out. And so and again, if you want them to have a non-compete where they can't transfer, pay them. Pay these players like employees. It's that simple. Give them money. And then you can get them under a non-compete, and a contract.
I think all this stuff is going to self-correct at some point. I mean, the transfer portal, we're already starting to see it a little bit. I think that might be part of the reason why Joe Milton didn't bounce, was because look at how many players get left without a place to go.
Where are you going to go?
You about have to know where you're going. If you're a really talented guy that everybody wants, obviously you're going to have a place to go. But we've seen some pretty decent players kind of get stuck without a home because the numbers don't work out, or programs don't necessarily need that at that time. So I think as that happens, we'll see this self-correct a bit. Same thing with the NIL money. It's going to take a couple of years, but you're going to stop seeing recruits outside the top echelon really getting a lot of money because you're going to have so many busts. Like it happens more than in the NFL with draft picks. I mean, you're going to have 4-star guys that don't pan out, and you've given this guy $500,000 and you've got no return on it at all. Like, people with money aren't going to make bad investments over and over and over. So I think all this stuff is going to self-correct. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and hopefully that will lessen a little bit of the drama that we see through the offseason.
I agree, because I'm just done with it. They're going to have a hard time getting the NCAA out of college basketball. I actually talked to Barrett Slee about that when he was on a few weeks ago. He was kind of like, well, they just get such a massive payday with the NCAA tournament and things like that. And they actually do provide value in college basketball. But in college football right now, it's over. It's over. Be done with the NCAA. Move on. And it's, and I know that it's going to be like, they have the discussions now. It probably gets decided like next year or the year after. And then it's like in 2030, they'll step away. Just do it. We know it's over. It's over. We don't need them. It's over. Maybe one day, Zach. maybe one day the headache will be over. The long national nightmare of the NCAA can be.
I picture you like popping a bottle of champagne when it finally does happen, because as long as you've railed against the NCAA, it'll be like a celebration for Charlie whenever that does finally happen.
It has been a long journey, but I remember more and more people have been coming over to the. I was going to say the dark side. It's not the dark side. We're on the right side of history here, folks. Mm-hmm. Come on over, because I remember.
Yeah, the NCAA is the evil empire and the emperor and all that. Yeah,
they're the Sith. They're the evil. And I've been making these rants for as long as I've been doing this. 2014, a while. And I remember, like being on the radio with Swain and those guys, and like people would call in and be like, "No, it doesn't need to be a business, and that's the player. Like, it's all about like you getting the exposure to go to the NFL and all this stuff." And those people are slowly coming over. just the more you see of how this is really working out with like players finally getting money and things like that, I think it's convincing people. And this is just another thing. If you are not convinced in the NCAA is the ultimate evil in college sports right now, hello, somebody. This Bru McCoy situation, I think everybody, it's almost a shame that USC is giving themselves as a focal point of this whole thing. They could just sign this and cut out the NCAA. But let's not forget the NCAA in this equation. Yes, USC is annoying. They should just sign this thing. But they shouldn't have to sign it. The NCAA should get the heck out of the way and shut up and go away and not be a factor.
I mean, if USC would have just signed it to begin with, nobody would have ever really known that happened, because nobody understands this whole process to begin with. It's not just talking about Jeremy Pruitt writing that letter to UNC Charlotte or to the NCAA so Osborne could play at UNC Charlotte. We have no idea what that letter said. We have no idea how necessary that letter was, what that letter actually accomplished, if it swayed the NCAA or if it was something official like this that Tennessee had to submit. Nobody knows. Nobody is going to go look back at that situation and say, well, you did this here, so you got to do this moving forward, or it's a bad look. Like, nobody, we have no clue what the NCAA does in those buildings. We have no idea what these forms are, the rules on waivers, none of this stuff. Nobody knows. So USC, you made this a bigger deal than you had to. So now it's very public, and you are going to have to either say, no, we're not going to let this kid play at Tennessee because we're not going to sign this form because we're just bad people, or you're going to have to do it with all this attention on you and everybody's going to know it. So either way, USC's made the wrong move here.
Absolutely. It's it just is so dumb. And I'll say of Jeremy Pruitt, I don't have almost anything nice to say about him. He was an idiot who had no idea what he was doing. But I do actually think he cared about the players. I actually do think that. The evidence does suggest that.
Yeah,
because we said it when the notice of allegations came out. Pruitt was trying to help these kids. Like a lot of kids come from impoverished backgrounds and just or they're just kids trying to just make it. And this money is huge for them that they can get out of playing college sports. I think he genuinely does, want to help. So there's my single nice thing I will say about Jeremy Pruitt, just because it was sort of a part of that conversation. Now, Zach, I told you we might talk about something at the end that we're not going to talk about because I wanted to bring up something else that you wrote about at A2ZSports.com. Go there, read everything that Zach writes. Now, this was the headline that you wrote, Zach. And
God, there's no telling where we're going. Okay.
You said, there's evidence that Vols QB Hendon Hooker might be the next Joe Burrow. That's a big claim, Zach. I saw that this morning and I kind of went, okay. I read it. I read what you wrote. And it's interesting. It actually is. I think I saw some of the Facebook comments on it. People were like, this is clickbaity nonsense. Please stop doing this. Which may be a fair criticism. But you wrote this. Please explain yourself.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not saying that Hendon Hooker will be. I'm saying there's evidence that he could be. Now, I know that could be pretty broad, but there's a lot of parallels, one with their careers, right? Like Hendon Hooker started at Virginia Tech. Nobody really knew about him. Joe Burrow started at Ohio State. Nobody knew about him outside of Ohio State. And I'm guessing many Ohio State fans didn't really even know about him if they weren't locked into the recruiting world. Neither one of them found much success there. They hit the transfer portal. Hooker did start some at Virginia Tech, but didn't see it. I don't think he ever played a full season. They both transfer to the SEC. Joe Burrow's not the favorite to win the quarterback battle at LSU in 2018. You've got McMillan there, I believe, for LSU, Miles Brennan. Both those guys are kind of viewed as the front runners. Same as Hooker at Tennessee. It's kind of an afterthought. It's Harrison Bailey. It's Joe Milton that's coming in. Maybe one of those guys win the job. Brian Maurer was still a factor back then, who had some connection there with Josh Heupel. So Burrow wins the battle, and it's kind of a controversy at LSU. Lots of people mad, teammates mad. Ed Orgeron has to have like a team meeting. I mean, it was almost kind of blew up, but luckily Burrow's a great leader, was able to bring the team together. Hooker kind of not quite the same. There's no controversy, but Joe Milton wins the job. Hendon Hooker takes the job after he gets hurt against Pittsburgh, kind of never looks back. You look at their numbers, Joe Burrow's numbers at LSU in 2018, Hendon Hooker's numbers at Tennessee in his first season in 2021, they're very similar. I mean, 2,945 passing yards for Hooker, 2,894 for Joe Burrow. They both had pretty good touchdown and interception rates. Hooker's was better. Burrow 16 to 5 there. Burrow's completion percentage was nowhere close to Hooker's. It was 57 compared to 68 for Hendon Hooker, so he's a little bit further ahead there. But they both play in these offenses that are high scoring, high octane. Burrow's offense changed his senior year with Joe Brady coming in, kind of getting kids the ball in space, utilizing your playmakers better. They had Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, which Tennessee we don't think has that right now, but Jamar Chase did not have a big year in 2018. I believe he was a true freshman then. Justin Jefferson wasn't the Justin Jefferson that we know now. They kind of blew up that season. Really, Cedric Tillman has better numbers than those guys did going into that 2019 season. So, you know, maybe he is a Jamar Chase type player, maybe not. I don't know yet. But there's a lot of parallels there with the way that things worked out, the type of offense they're stepping into, their journeys to get to where they were, what they did in their first seasons there while they're kind of learning the offense, learning the conference, learning the opponents and all that stuff, and really becoming comfortable at your new program. So I think there's a lot of parallels there. Joe Burrow wasn't on the Heisman radar entering the 2019 season, really. Hooker is a little bit, and I think that's just because Tennessee, they hype up some Tennessee quarterbacks. We've seen it. I mean, we saw some Jarrett Garantano Heisman hype early on at one point. Again, it would be, I don't think Hendon Hooker's going to go out there and throw for 5,600 yards and 60 touchdowns, but he could be this Joe Burrow type guy that really burst onto the national scene. Maybe he's got over 4,000 passing yards. He's a little bit more of a runner than Joe Burrow was, even though Burrow's very athletic. So he could put up a lot of yards on the ground, kind of, you know, make those numbers look a little better. So I don't necessarily think Hendon Hooker's going to come and take over the world and become the biggest star in the entire sport this season, but look, their journeys are similar. So why not? If Joe Burrow did it, who was relatively unknown, why can't Hendon Hooker do that same thing? And they're both kind of similar leaders as well. You know, Joe Burrow isn't an in-your-face guy. He doesn't say a whole lot, but when he does talk, people listen. And we've heard that about Hendon Hooker, how he's kind of a quiet, reserved leader, but we've seen more and more of these practice clips where he's out there. I mean, he's leading. He's getting guys to go through drills again. He's holding them to a certain standard. So he does have those strong leadership abilities, which is something I think sets Burrow apart, because Burrow's not the most physically gifted quarterback out there. Patrick Mahomes has a better arm. Josh Allen's more athletic. Aaron Rodgers is more accurate. They all have the physical skills that are better than Burrow's, but Burrow has that just elite leadership ability. It kind of sets him apart.
I don't totally know how I feel about this. The parallels are kind of eerie. It is interesting. You know, I guess I didn't realize how not good Burrow's first season was. He really went from extremely average to the Heisman winning, national championship winning, absolute all-star. And you're not totally sure why. I also agree that Hooker has really showed signs that he's a great leader and kind of a quiet sort of servant leader type, to get kind of, you know, self-help book-y there. He just has to show me more in terms of technique, of being like a pure passing quarterback. Like Burrow was making passes that season where you looked and you just went, that's an NFL quarterback. And I think anybody that's watched college football at length, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You see some guys who play and you just go, that dude's making NFL throws, because the NFL is such a different animal. And I was kind of skeptical of Burrow. He had that, but I also kind of went like, his set of wide receivers were really excellent with Jamar Chase and those guys. Like, he really had a leg up in terms of dudes that were playing around him. They ended up kind of having a magical season with that running back too. Like, just every part of it was good. And then he went to the NFL and has been super impressive, and obviously went to the Super Bowl. From Hooker, the pure quarterback technique just has to get better. And maybe that's this offseason. Maybe he's forming that. I mean, I'll put it like this. I am not expecting Hendon Hooker to become Joe Burrow, but I am expecting him to take steps forward and hopefully be more accurate, be more judicious. Also, maybe take more chances with the football, because he was very cautious with the football last year. The offense in general is kind of formulated to not put the football in danger very often, and that's purposeful. And Heupel's even talked about it. He is all about protecting the football. Just because turnovers, in the way that Tennessee plays, with how many opportunities you give the defense, a turnover is just devastating. And so I see the parallels. That is extremely interesting, and I didn't realize how similar they were. It's a huge comparison, though. That's really it. It really made me raise my eyebrows when I saw it. I was like, oh boy, you're getting bold with this one, Zach. This is
I mean, if you look though, and there's more to it. I mean, they're both very similar size, 6'4", 220, similar stature. But if you looked at the yards per attempt, right? Hooker averaged 9.7 yards per attempt this season. Last season, threw the ball 303 times, which he will throw the ball more this year just because he'll start 2 extra games, assuming he stays healthy. Maybe Tennessee throws the ball more too this year. I don't know. But Joe Burrow's yards per attempt in that 5,600-yard passing season was 10.8. So Hooker's was 9.7 last year. You're right in that area. Really, the only thing is throw the ball more. I mean, if Hendon Hooker throws the ball 200 more times this season, which I don't think is going to be quite that, it's many pass attempts, because Josh Heupel tends to run the ball more than LSU probably ran the ball in 2019, though they did run the ball quite a bit with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Really, it just comes down to more volume as far as more passes. I mean, because you've done everything else. You got the touchdown to interception ratio. It's basically the exact same. Burrow was 60-6 in 2019. Hooker was 31-3 last year, so it's just cut in half. So I feel like that part of it is very similar. It just comes down to volume. And how much is Tennessee going to throw the ball? Are they going to run more efficiently this season, where more drives end in touchdowns, which less punts allows your offense more opportunities to throw the ball more? I mean, you're running more plays than anybody else in the country. There's no reason you shouldn't run more pass plays than almost anybody else in the country, outside of like Mississippi State and some of those teams that just never run the ball. Again, I'm not predicting that this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying, look, there's a lot of parallels there. Hooker's followed the same path that Burrow kind of followed. Like, why can't that be the next step in his evolution? Maybe not that extreme to where you have the greatest season ever by a college football quarterback. I mean, I don't think anybody can predict that for any quarterback, because it's just so comes from out of nowhere often. But I don't see why he can't take a huge step forward, this being his second year in this offense, and really being comfortable in it.
We shall see. It's an interesting point. I mean, I will 100% agree. The parallels are pretty fascinating. Hadn't thought about it. How did you even notice that?
I don't remember. I was looking for, we cover NFL teams, right? Obviously. Yeah. So I do a lot of Cincinnati Bengals stuff. I write about Joe Burrow a lot. And I think I was just looking for what him and Chase had done together in college. And I was looking back at the entire LSU stats for 2019, which I've looked at a lot. I was trying to get the numbers exact. And I think I went back even to 2018 to check something. And I noticed Joe Burrow's numbers. And I've wrote down Hendon Hooker's stat line from last season so many times that I know he threw for 2,945 yards. Like that's just ingrained in my brain at this point because I wrote it down so many times. And I saw Joe Burrow's yardage total, and I was like, "Well, that's kind of interesting. That's very, very close to Hendon Hooker." So it just kind of took off from there.
Well,
and this morning was the morning to do it. I'd been sitting on it for like 4 days thinking about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it." Like
it got the response from what I saw. When I looked at it, it hadn't been up on the social medias too long, but it got the responses that I was expecting. You know, I read that headline, I was like, "Oh boy." The boomers they're gonna love this one, and they were a little. I think I saw somebody say that these clickbait articles should be outlawed in one of those comments. Yes,
it's not.
Let's go to Congress and outlaw clickbait articles.
In the sense that I don't think people really fully understand what clickbait is. Just because you don't agree with something doesn't make it clickbait. Clickbait is when something isn't intentionally misleading to the point where it has nothing to do with the title. You know, I've towed that line before, trust me. And I may have even went over the line at times, but you know, you try not to. But this whole business is a strange thing where you're creating content and you want people to read it, but you have to make it inviting to make people want to read it. And as a consumer of sports material and columns and stuff of teams I follow, I understand what it takes for me to want to read what somebody wrote. And there's a lot of times where there's a lot of good content that we don't read because it doesn't have good packaging on it. And it's one of those things that's kind of difficult about this at times.
It's a little bit of a tightrope walk, but
it is.
I would put it this way. This was far more substantive than I may have thought it was going to be when I clicked on it. And I know you're not a huge clickbait guy. I think people might think that sometimes with the way that we structure headlines and things like that. That's very purposeful. But I mean, realistically, your stuff is good.
I'll tell you just one, if anybody's listening, when I write something, obviously there's analytics and metrics that go into every single thing that we do, and we have people that keep up with that constantly throughout the day and this and that. But my goal with anything is just to create a conversation, kind of like what we're having right now. You know, it's just that's what sports topics and sports writing on the internet. If it's not just a straight report of information like coming from an Adam Schefter or somebody like that that's breaking news all the time. If it's content like from The Athletic or stuff that we're just consuming for our own personal enjoyment, I just want to start a conversation. I want people to talk about an idea, and whichever side of that you fall on is fine. Like if somebody does not think that Hendon Hooker has a chance to be the next Joe Burrow, that's fine. Like I respect that. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Everybody has an opinion, and nobody's opinion is wrong, and everybody has a reason for that opinion. So, you know, I respect everybody's opinion out there, and that's kind of my purpose of what I do and what I try to do.
You're a little kinder than me. I don't respect everybody's opinion. Some people have horrible opinions.
Well, I do disagree with plenty of opinions, but I respect their. They can have that. You know, they can have whatever opinion they want. We all can.
Well, that one in particular, I would say I was impressed by how substantive it actually was, where I went like, oof, Zach might be stretching on this one. And I read it and I was like, no, that's weird. That's pretty crazy that they have that many similarities. It's interesting. So go to A2ZSports.com and read stuff that Zach writes. That's the show, though. I am Charlie Burris. That is Zach Ragan. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. A2ZSports.com, obviously, at A2ZSports on the social medias. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, A2Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple, Spotify, and go to YouTube. And this leads us into an exciting new element of the show here. Go to YouTube.com, type in A2Z Sports, watch the entire podcast, and then you'll be able to see this fancy new graphic that we have to end the show with. The graphics guys made it. Jake, he's a homie, coming through with the fancy graphics to end the show here. I'm going to put that up, and when we put that up, there will be videos there for you to click on, and then a subscribe button for the A2Z Sports channel. And honestly, why don't you just click all three? Be a bro, click all three, and help out the boys. And go. We got to do this ad read after Zach, but Superbook Sports. Go download the Superbook Sports app. Also, they support them because they support us. And I think that's it.
Get those bets in for Tennessee's 2022 season before things get kicked off here in less than 2 weeks. It is almost here.
So many good bets for right now, leading up to the season. You know, you can get those futures for national championship winners. Obviously, you should choose Tennessee. I think that's a given if you really feel that way. But plenty of great bets this week for this week's upcoming games. Obviously Vandy, Hawaii, Northwestern Nebraska, Connecticut, Utah State.
UNC, are they playing this weekend? I feel like.
Let's see: Wyoming, Illinois, Charlotte, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, UTEP, Nevada, New Mexico State. That's it for what is up on Superbook for this week. But as I mentioned, they got those national championship bets, conference championship bets, regular season win bets. It's all there. Superbook Sports. Go give them a download and get betting there. That's it for us. Thanks so much again for listening. Charlie Burris, Zach Ragan. We'll talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.